Hey guys, PJ back with Exotic Car Hacks, and today we are comparing my McLaren P1 to my McLaren Senna. Now, we talked about this during the P1 review, that this was going to be a video we're going to do, and so today I decided to be talking about both of these cars here with you guys so you can kind of understand, now that I've had some time to spend with the P1, my thoughts between the two cars and why I still prefer one over the other. So, one of the things we pointed out in the P1 is that it is extraordinarily beautiful to look at. It has some incredible lines, and while this spec may be a little bit more tame because of the gray and black and not so much of bright, vivid colors like the Senna here, we can clearly see from far that the Senna is a significantly more dramatic piece of machinery than the P1, meaning really in its just standstill look at how angular the lines are, how many openings exist, and it is completely going away from sexy and it is coming back into sledgehammer mode, like I am here to destroy you. And it works fantastically well on the Senna, but it is an acquired taste that does take some time to get used to. I think this is something very important to understand between the two cars. We could say that the P1 is an absolutely beautiful model marvel to all people right away. However, the Senna takes some time getting used to. But I do believe that the Senna's dramatic angle does make it one of the most interesting cars that has ever graced, in design anyways, the automotive world, which I think is why it's so fantastic of a car and why it's such an acquired taste. Now, with the P1, some of the things that really make it significantly different from the Senna is that, remember, this is a 2014, this is a 2019, there's a 5-year gap between the two cars, and we can see some spectacular marvels of engineering and kind of how this car was put together so much better than this particular car. And you know, to actually understand that this came to life 5 years before this is pretty impressive, because the attention to detail on this is almost like flagship. Like McLaren was like, look, this is our flagship car. And then when this car was released, it was kind of like, here's another hypercar. So I'm going to focus on this for a second because it's in the details that you truly see the beauty of the P1. First off, let's talk about the generic aspect of carbon fiber and its usage throughout. I mean, take a look here. You'll see some beautiful carbon fiber in the inner work, the tub, the dash, the entire outside, but even down to these basic strips here have been turned from black to carbon fiber, creating a very interesting design. Truly a beautiful one, I might add, because it carries the work of carbon fiber throughout. And you can, if you look under certain lights, you can actually see the sheet of carbon under the paint, which is superb. And even opening some panels allow you to see that the same panel of carbon was basically cut to follow the weave throughout. And this is the benefit of the P1. It is a flagship car where attention to the detail was truly not taken for granted. Even down to the design. Take a look at the door design. You'll see beautiful works of carbon here, inside and out. But here's the other angle. The door buttons are hidden under here. The door button for the actual trunk here is hidden in, so instead of having to open it and do the typical latch, they thought this out, they paid attention, and they said, how do we ensure nothing blocks the beauty of this car? And they did a marvelous job with it. And part of the reason I think it's so expensive, I don't mean as a car, because this is now still 1.6 million and this is $1.1 million. There is a difference, even though this is much older. I think the real idea of why it was so much more to fix, because when things go wrong with this, it's 30 to 50 grand. When things go wrong with this, it's basically 3 to 5 grand. So you start to realize that this is so unique to itself. It's kind of its own platform. It does really well, and everything after that came from this. This is kind of a reverse engineered platform. You go, we already have the 720S, we already have 765 LT, we have something in between with an extreme shell, and then we have this. This has a hybrid mode, this is a hybrid car, this is not. And yet, they are both extraordinary in their own ways. So I wanted to take a moment to talk a little bit about what I love about each car, and so you can understand a little bit more about how I look at it. So first off, let's start with, again, attention to detail. Lots of detail throughout the car, lots of paying attention about weaves. Look at the carbon exposed thing. Look at even the carbon fiber engine. Everything is really well thought out and put together, and design blends with function and the experience is spectacular, just spectacular. Now on this side, you have drama, you have excitement, you have glass doors, you have huge vents, you have zero trunk space, and you have these tiny little windows and this huge wing that's always up, and you get drama and excitement and absolutely no usability. And the fact that the car doesn't have a dash, like a glove compartment, that doesn't have a trunk, you have nothing, nowhere to store anything, but yet the interior is spectacular on this. And you know why? Because the interior in that is so crammed into a race car feel, which is fabulous. This gives you a little bit more flexibility if you do have to drive in terms of on the street or anything. You don't feel as clamped. So you have two basic, very interesting dynamics. On the outside, this makes it very dramatic. On the inside, this makes it dramatic, but on the outside, it makes it beautiful. And this makes the interior beautiful. They're almost reversed, which is very, very interesting. Now, they both have roof scoops, and they both have scissor doors, but here's the other part. This is supposed to be one of the lightest and most incredible cars that McLaren's ever put out. And yet the doors on this, you could lift them with a finger, and this, you need both of your hands to push the doors up. So you can see where McLaren took the idea of this and went into making it more user-friendly here and removed the biggest part or the drama here, which was the electric motor, into this becoming more of a incredible, crazy car. Now, some of the things I want to point out about the big difference between this and this is the first thing where the P1 really takes the edge is how the craftsmanship really follows this car. Craftsmanship is 1 here, 0 here. Significantly better build quality, significantly older yet withstands time better. This has 800 miles on it. I've already had a shattered windshield, 3 check engine lights, and this particular car has never really had an issue yet with 3,000 miles on the clock. So you can see that that does make a difference. So that's important to note. Now, the other thing I would kind of want to point out is that when it comes to interiors, the P1's interior is very exciting, filled with carbon fiber, but so is the Senna. The big difference between the two is that one doesn't feel flimsy. It looks like it's hard carbon. This is more like carbon was used for lightweight and decoration, but it doesn't have that edge and that excitement. And while I enjoy the Senna interior better because the Senna seats are significantly better than the P1 seats, I would argue that this particular car's interior, its tech and everything, probably because it's 5 years newer, is better here. Now, as it comes to design, it's more of a choice of beauty versus beast and drama. So it really depends what you're looking for. I can drive this car to the local supermarket and nobody would know what it is. People would have to glance and be like, it's a McLaren. This makes a statement no matter where you go and how you go, partially because of the color red, but partially also because its design is just insanity. And I think that's where, this car really wins, is it's just different. There's nothing else like it. And this could be confused for a 570S. And well, some of us prefer beauty over, kind of like drama. I would argue that a car that's over $1 million has to have some drama. So I think the Senna, while I don't think is nearly as beautiful as the P1, takes that edge in terms of design and innovation around design. And then the final component I want to talk about is basically the drivability of both of these cars and the ease of living with both, which is, I think, a big part of exotic car ownership. It's a lot easier to live with a Senna than it is with a P1. And I want to explain 2 reasons why that's true and untrue at the same time. So in this garage, I have lifts. This Senna does not fit under a lift that is too wide. This P1 easily fits on top, bottom, anywhere it wants to be, and it just functions greatly. No matter where, it can be stored easily. The problem, though, is with the Senna, you can literally connect it here to a battery tender and get it run. On the P1, however, the battery tender, I want to show you here, is exactly 60 to 70 pounds, is incredibly heavy. It's near impossible to lift. And it's this giant thing that takes 20 minutes to plug in and out and takes 2.5 hours to 3 hours to charge the car. So it's not something you can just leave off and get back in, because if you leave it, it might be drained and it might take you much longer and a much bigger headache to fix it. So theoretically, while the Senna is a bigger car and harder to store, it's also a much easier car to live with because it follows the conventional values of most exotic cars. You can plug it, leave it, and then not deal with it, and then come back to it and put air in the tires and you're good to go. The P1, though, requires a little bit more attention, and it could be much more costly if you ignore that attention, which is where I feel the Senna is a little bit easier to manage and live with, and also because it has some kind of warranty left, and this is now out of warranty, so obviously there's more fear there. The main ideology here is that it's easier to get in and out of this car than this car. It takes a lot of work to get in and out of a P1. It takes a lot of work to drive it. So the argument is, while this is more dramatic and while the ride quality is significantly lessened than this particular car, living with this is still easier if you don't intend to drive it that much. If you do intend to drive it a lot and get in and out of the car lot, I do believe that the P1 is a better usable car, but at a much higher cost. And this is where kind of the P1 doesn't shine. If you want the best, you have to pay for it. And I think one of the issues with, you know, looking at a P1, just like no different than a Veyron, is that they are the first of their kind, and as a result, they don't have a lot of cross-platform pollination, so therefore parts are expensive. When looking at future versions of the cars like the Senna or the Chiron, you start to see a lot of collaboration between inner brands like Volkswagen, etc., and the buttons on the like windows no longer need to cost $4,000 on the, like they did on the Veyron with the Chiron, because they're basically Volkswagen parts. So it's the little stuff that makes a big difference, but then comes the argument. The experience has a cost, and the experience of having nicer crafted buttons does cost more money and is more exciting when you drive the car. So it really comes down to how much do you expect yourself to drive the car. If you intend yourself to drive the car a lot, I would probably pick a P1 as the car. However, if you intend to park a car as one of your 10, 15 cars like me, then the Senna really takes the bet as the better value for the money, especially in the world we're in now, where 500K more gets you a P1 and 500K less gets you a Senna. But here comes the ultimate argument, and something I teach at Exotic Car Hacks a lot. So if you don't have Exotic Car Hacks or know what it is, click the link in the description and actually join our community, because we teach people how to get in and out of exotics without losing money. And this is where we kind of predict future car values, how they work out, and why the P1 makes sense. So the P1 will most likely be the car to lead the revolution of very high dollar hypercars in the future. And I believe partially because the P1 is the first of its kind, it will be part of the Holy Trinity, which is the 19 LaFerrari and P1, which will continuously rise in cost. Because of the non-specialty nature of the Senna, while it is a very exciting and dramatic car, I think in the long term it will also do well, but I don't think it'll nearly do as well as the P1, which is why the P1, while being $500,000 more expensive, is still a better purchase than a Senna as it stands today. There's more upside on the Senna, but there's longer term value to the P1. And so that has been my review of both cars. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Let me know which one you think is a better car. Do you think the dramatic Senna or the more refined and beautiful P1? Would love to hear your thoughts. Thankfully for me, I own both, and yet another surprise coming this year, trying to yet get closer to the Holy Trinity. So I'm sure you can anticipate what's coming next. Make sure you like, subscribe, and turn on notifications, of course, so you continue to get updates. 2 more reviews coming for the P1, a driving one and then living with one. So you'll hear more about this car in the weeks to come. But also don't forget, today my STO comes back, so we'll have more content on that as well. Hope you've enjoyed the video. Make sure you leave a comment, and I'll catch you next time.